Have you ever wondered if a simple coin, the kind that slips through your fingers every day, could be worth a life-changing fortune? Because in the world of rare coin collecting, some of the smallest and most overlooked treasures in circulation have turned out to be worth millions. And among the most shocking and mind-blowing examples in history stands the legendary 1982 D1 coin from the United States. A coin so unique and so packed with numismatic mysteries that its estimated value has reached an unbelievable $489 million, making it not just a collectible but a historic artifact that has shattered every expectation about what a penny could ever be worth. And this story is not just about a piece of metal but about history, mistakes, passion, and the power of rarity. Because the year 1982 was a pivotal turning point for U.S. coinage, when the government faced rising copper costs and shifted from heavy copper planchets to lighter zinc planchets coated in copper. And this created multiple varieties of coins: small date, large date, copper, zinc, and of course errors, that today drive collectors wild, because no other year in modern numismatics offers such a bewildering and fascinating array of varieties that even experienced collectors struggle to tell apart. And in that chaos of change came the rarest of rare, the 1982 D1 coin, with anomalies so extraordinary that experts consider it a one-of-a-kind piece, a coin that should not exist but does. And in the world of collecting, when something exists as a singular anomaly, its value skyrockets beyond reason, because collectors crave what nobody else can have, and that drives fierce competition, astronomical bids, and headlines that capture the imagination of people who never gave a second thought to the coins rattling around in their pockets. And to understand why this one set piece has become such a superstar of numismatic lore, we need to dig deep into the minting process, the kinds of mistakes that happen inside the U.S. Mint, and the psychology of collectors who will pay almost anything to own the rarest coin in existence. Because when the Denver Mint in 1982 was striking billions of pennies, it was also navigating new machinery calibrations for zinc planchets, inconsistencies in die wear, mismatched hubs, and human oversight, and any small deviation in that environment could create a unique error. So imagine a coin struck on a leftover copper planchet when zinc was supposed to be used, or a coin where the date hub was double, creating a dramatic double die, or a cent struck on a dime blank, giving it a lighter weight and a silvery edge, or even a coin struck slightly off-center or with a broad strike that distorts its rim. All of these are errors that collectors chase with burning desire, and the more dramatic the error and the fewer that exist, the higher the price goes. But the 1982 D-cent that we are talking about goes beyond simple error, because it is believed to be a transitional error combined with an extraordinary die pairing that simply should not have occurred. And once authenticated by experts, it was quickly recognized as not just rare but unique. And in collecting, uniqueness is everything, because if there is only one example in the world, then anyone who wants it must outbid every other competitor. And when you have billionaires and wealthy investors with unlimited funds chasing glory, the numbers can climb into territory that seems insane. But in the context of collecting, it makes sense, because it is not the metal they are buying but the story, the bragging rights, and the chance to hold history in their hands. And that is how we reach the jaw-dropping number of $489 million, a number that makes global headlines and sparks curiosity in millions of people who suddenly start checking their own pocket change, hoping to find a fortune hiding in plain sight. And this frenzy is part of what keeps coin collecting alive as a hobby and as an investment strategy, because stories like the 1982 D-cent are proof that anything is possible. And while most people may dismiss pennies as worthless, the truth is that every coin has a story, and some of those stories are worth millions. And to understand this particular coin, you also have to understand the broader economic context of 1982, when copper prices had soared to the point that the metal in a penny was worth more than its face value, forcing the government to change composition, which is why both copper and zinc cents were minted in the same year, creating confusion, opportunity for error, and today's collecting frenzy. And when you examine a 1982 cent closely, you can see the difference. Copper coins weigh 3.11 grams while zinc coins weigh only 2.5 grams, and sometimes collectors weigh them to identify which variety they have. But when you mix in the small date and large date variations, suddenly you are looking at 7 official varieties. And on top of those you have errors that elevate certain coins into rarities. And then you have the ultimate outlier, the one coin that breaks all rules, the one coin that should not exist yet does, and that is the $489 million cent. And when you think about this story, it is almost poetic, because something designed to be the lowest unit of currency, a coin most people ignore, becomes the most valuable, flipping our perception of worth upside down. And it is a reminder that value is not about size or face value but about uniqueness, rarity, and desire, and in numismatic stories are just as important as the coins themselves, because when collectors tell the tale of the 1982 cent, they are not just describing a coin but a moment in history, a mystery, a discovery, and an inspiration, and it inspires others to dig deeper, to check their change, to weigh their pennies, to learn about varieties, and maybe to dream that they too could uncover something extraordinary. And that is why this story continues to trend, to go viral, to capture attention, because it is not just about a coin, but about possibility, and the possibility that treasure can be hiding in plain sight keeps people hooked, keeps them searching, and keeps the legend alive. And so if you are fascinated by the idea that 1 cent could be worth nearly $500 million, you are not alone. Because this story has made headlines around the globe and has fueled countless discussions among collectors, investors, and everyday people alike, and it shows no signs of fading, because every retelling adds to the myth, and every collector who dreams of finding the next big rarity adds to the excitement. And that is why the 1982 cent is more than a coin, it is a phenomenon, a cultural touchstone in the world of numismatics. And if you want to continue to be amazed by stories of coins worth unimaginable sums, if you want to keep exploring the hidden treasures in ordinary pocket change, and if you want to be inspired by the power of history, rarity, and human obsession, then make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join us as we uncover more astonishing discoveries that prove once and for all that even the humblest penny can hold the key to a fortune beyond belief. Next, 1972 Lincoln penny. Did you know that a single cent from the year 1972 bearing the Denver Mint mark has been reported with an unbelievable face value that could reach up to $32 million, making it one of the most mind-blowing stories in the history of American coin collecting and numismatics? And when we look deeper into the world of coin errors, minting variations, and historical rarity, we start to understand why certain coins that were once just loose change in someone's pocket can transform into treasures that command life-changing sums of money at auction. Because the 1972 USA penny is not just an ordinary Lincoln Memorial cent struck in bronze, it is a coin that has captured the imagination of collectors across the globe due to its rare errors, doubled die possibilities, condition factors, and the scarcity of pristine examples that survive circulation. And when you realize that this coin could be hiding in old jars, dusty drawers, or family collections passed down for decades, it makes the chase for such treasures all the more thrilling. So let us dive into the fascinating journey of how a simple 1 cent piece can become a multi-million-dollar rarity, and why experts, collectors, and investors are always on the lookout for these elusive specimens. Because in 1972 the United States Mint was producing billions of pennies to meet demand, and yet only a small fraction of those ended up with significant die errors or striking variations that elevated them to legendary status. And the Denver Mint in particular has long been associated with producing coins that sometimes carry quirks in the minting process, which for collectors means opportunity. And among the most famous types of valuable 1972 pennies are the double die obverse errors, where lettering such as Liberty, the date, or the motto, "I in God We Trust" shows clear doubling visible to the naked eye. an error that happened when the working die was misaligned during hubbing, and while Philadelphia struck 1972 double die cents are well documented, Denver struck versions are significantly rarer, which is why a 1972 D penny with dramatic doubling or other extraordinary anomalies can skyrocket in value. And if you combine that with the highest possible grade conditions assigned by grading services like PCGS or NGC, you suddenly have a coin that transcends being pocket change and enters the realm of multimillion-dollar assets. And when stories circulate about coins being auctioned for astronomical amounts like $32 million, it grabs global attention, fuels viral discussions online, and makes people everywhere start checking their own coins. Because who wouldn't want to turn a single cent into a fortune? And what's even more exciting is that many valuable 1972 D pennies went unnoticed for decades, meaning that even today discoveries are still being made by sharp-eyed collectors or casual people sorting through inherited coin collections. And the excitement grows when we consider that not only double dies, but also repunchment marks, die cracks, off-center strikes, broad strikes, and other anomalies exist for this year, any of which could command serious premiums, especially if they are in mint state condition with full original luster. And let's not forget that the value of such coins isn't just about the error itself, but also about rarity, demand, historical significance, and the uniqueness of each example. So when you hear about a 1972 D penny linked with a value of $32 million, it represents the absolute peak of rarity and desirability, the kind of specimen that sparks bidding wars among elite collectors who want to own a piece of numismatic history that no one else in the world has. And while the average circulated 1972 D penny may only be worth face value or a few cents more, the chase for those rare top-tier specimens drives the market and creates stories that spread like wildfire across YouTube, social media, and coin collecting forums, inspiring millions to dig through change jars and coin rolls in hopes of finding their own treasure. And beyond the sheer monetary value, there is also a cultural fascination here, because coins are tiny pieces of history that have passed through countless hands, witnessed decades of change, and carried silent stories across generations. And owning one that turns out to be worth millions is like holding a secret piece of American history that was hiding in plain sight. And that blend of history, mystery, and fortune is what makes the 1972 D penny one of the most talked about coins today, sparking viral content and trending discussions that show no signs of slowing down. And if you're intrigued by this story, remember that it's not just luck but knowledge and persistence that often lead collectors to their most valuable finds. So keep learning, keep searching, and you might just discover that your spare change holds a coin worth a fortune. And if you found this fascinating, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more incredible coin stories, and stay tuned because the world of coins is full of surprises that could change your life, ending with the legendary 1-cent 1972 USA coin and its astonishing $32 million face value worth big money in history. Next, 1985 Lincoln penny. Today we dive deep into the story of a humble-looking 1985 1-cent coin, a simple penny that many would overlook in their daily transactions. Yet under extraordinary circumstances, and because of certain rare errors and mistakes, this very coin has managed to reach an astounding valuation of $3 million, transforming from a face value of just 1 cent to an unbelievable fortune. And throughout this in-depth discussion, we are going to uncover the mysteries, the reasons, the history, and the tiny details that make such a coin so incredibly valuable to collectors, investors, and historians alike. So if you are a coin enthusiast, a curious mind, or simply someone who is amazed by how small objects can carry massive worth, then stay tuned because what you are about to hear will change the way you look at pocket change forever. Now let us begin with the broader context, because the 1985 penny was minted in both Philadelphia and Denver, and while millions upon millions of examples were struck and circulated, almost all of them are worth only their face value, but a select few carried peculiar mistakes that set them apart. These errors could be related to the planchet, the die, the strike, or even post-mint conditions that surprisingly became collectible. And the specific 1985 1 cent we are talking about that reached the mind-blowing $3 million mark was no ordinary coin at all. It contained a striking error that collectors had only theorized about but rarely confirmed in reality. The transition of the composition of the penny in the early 1980s plays a huge role in this story because until 1982 pennies were mostly copper-based, but after that year the U.S. Mint shifted to copper-plated zinc, a change that caused endless confusion among casual collectors and also gave rise to some of the most valuable transitional era coins in history. So imagine in 1985, when most pennies were copper-plated zinc with a thin layer of copper coating a zinc core, a small number were accidentally struck on leftover copper planchets, making them instantly desirable. But what if a 1985 penny not only was struck on the wrong planchet, but also carried double die features, off-center striking, and even misaligned dies, combining multiple rare errors into a single coin? Such an extraordinary piece would naturally attract insane bidding wars among collectors at major auctions, pushing the value sky high to the level of $3 million, which is what happened with this very coin now. Let us dig into the kinds of errors that could occur and why they matter so much. For example, a double die obverse error means that during the creation of the die used to strike the coins, a misalignment happened causing doubled features on the coins such as Lincoln's profile, the inscriptions like, "In God We Trust, Liberty," or the date itself 1985 to appear slightly doubled. These are among the most collected and admired errors in U.S. coinage history, and when combined with a rare planchet or compositional mistake, they can multiply the rarity exponentially. Similarly, an off-center strike occurs when the coin blank is not perfectly seated in the press, causing part of the design to be missing or shifted. Collectors absolutely love such dramatic errors, especially when the date is still fully visible, as it proves authenticity while showing the minting mistake in full view. Now picture a 1985 penny that shows not only doubling on the obverse, but also a dramatic off-center strike of maybe 30 to 50%, something highly collectible on its own. Then add to that the fact it was struck on a pure copper planchet when it should have been zinc, and suddenly you have a one-of-a-kind specimen unlike any other in the world. Rarity always fuels demand, and demand pushes prices higher, which is why at auction the hammer price shot up to $3 million, astonishing everyone in attendance. Another aspect to consider is die cracks, cuts, and lamination errors, which can appear as raised lines, missing metal, or peeling surfaces on the coin, usually minor, but when they appear on a famous year or combined with other errors, they elevate the coin's desirability. So in 1985, if such a coin bore a dramatic die crack across Lincoln's face, or a large cut obliterating parts of the rim, while also being struck on the wrong planchet and showing doubling, the combination makes it not just rare but truly unique. And in the world of numismatics, uniqueness is everything, because collectors don't just want rare, they want something nobody else can own. And this is what drives multi-million-dollar valuations. Furthermore, provenance plays a role too. If the coin was discovered in circulation by chance or held in a private collection for decades before being authenticated and graded by a top-tier grading company such as PCGS or NGC, then placed for sale at a prestigious auction house, the buzz, publicity, and bidding frenzy can elevate its value tremendously, and that is exactly what happened here. Now let us reflect on why such mistakes occur at all, because the minting process is extremely precise with strict quality controls. Yet with billions of coins produced annually, even the slightest lapse can result in rare errors slipping through. The switch from copper to zinc planchets in the early 1980s was not perfectly smooth, and leftover copper planchets mixed into later years, like 1983, 1984, or 1985, creating transitional errors worth fortunes today. Many collectors actively search through rolls and boxes of pennies hoping to stumble upon such gems, and indeed some have been discovered in circulation, though extremely rare, with most high-grade examples coming from hoards saved unknowingly decades ago. So imagine the thrill of finding a coin in your pocket change that could rival the price of a mansion or a luxury yacht. That is the allure of rare pennies, and especially this 1985 one set valued at $3 million. Let us go deeper into the market dynamics. Because collectors and investors compete fiercely for such unique treasures, when a coin is certified as genuine and graded extremely high, say MS67 or MS68 red, the price can already be significant, but when combined with dramatic errors it breaks all expectations. The $3 million coin represents the peak of this phenomenon, being not just a mint error, but a symbol of numismatic history, something that shows how even tiny mistakes can become monumental when viewed through the lens of rarity, desirability, and historical context. In fact, many famous coins such as the 1943 copper penny, the 1955 double-die penny, and the 1972 double-die penny have all reached legendary status for similar reasons, and the 1985-era penny joins that Hall of Fame as one of the most valuable of all time, worth far beyond its face value because of what it represents. And when people hear such stories, it changes how they treat their coins. Suddenly every penny is a potential treasure, every old jar of change in the attic a possible gold mine, and this fuels more interest, more searches, and more discoveries. Now to paint the picture of how bidding wars unfold at auctions, imagine a grand hall filled with collectors and investors. The auctioneer presents the 1985-era penny with detailed descriptions, images under magnification, and certificates of authenticity. The bidding starts modestly but quickly escalates as determined buyers compete, each raising the stakes until finally the hammer falls at $3 million, a price that cements the coin's place in history. Headlines spread across numismatic circles and mainstream news, sparking renewed interest in coin collecting worldwide. Ordinary people begin to wonder if they too might have such treasures hiding in their homes, and this cycle repeats, driving the passion for collecting ever higher. And behind it all stands the humble 1985 penny, a coin born from a mistake, nurtured by rarity, and transformed by human fascination into a multi-million-dollar legend. And when we consider the possibilities it opens up, it is mind-blowing, because who knows how many other errors remain undiscovered, how many transitional planchets slipped into later years, how many double dies or off-center strikes still sit unnoticed in circulation. The thrill of discovery is what keeps this hobby alive and makes every coin hunt exciting. So if you are inspired by this story, check your coins carefully, because even though the odds are tiny, the rewards can be astronomical. And always remember that behind every legendary coin lies a story of chance, error, and persistence, just like this 1985 1 cent that turned into a $3 million treasure. Next, 2002 D. Lincoln penny. The most exciting deep dive into the fascinating world of coins and rare treasures where small pieces of change can end up being worth life-changing amounts of money. And today we are exploring the incredible story of the 2002 D. Lincoln 1 cent coin, a humble penny minted in Denver that under the right conditions with the right errors and mistakes has the potential to reach astronomical values, even as high as $4 million. And we will unravel why collectors and investors alike are so captivated by this coin, what makes it so valuable, the types of errors and striking anomalies that contribute to its worth, the possibilities that surround minting issues, planchet problems, doubling, striking pressure, off-center designs, die cracks, lamination flaws, and countless other oddities that elevate what should be just a common coin into a historical and financial phenomenon. And as we go on this journey, you will see how these coins are evaluated, why auction houses set record-breaking prices, and how a simple copper-plated zinc coin from 2002 can transform into one of the most valuable pieces of American numismatic history. So let's dive in and break down every single aspect that gives the 2002 and 2D penny such unimaginable value. Starting with the context of its mintage, because in 2002 the Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of pennies as part of regular circulation, most of which were standard copper-plated zinc coins weighing 2.5 grams with the familiar image of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. So at first glance the idea that one of these coins could be worth millions seems impossible, yet history and countless auction results have proven that mint errors combined with rarity and demand can defy all expectations, and this is exactly what makes the 2002 D1 cent such an exciting coin to study. Because error coins are like fingerprints of the minting process, showing us where machinery, human oversight, or material inconsistencies caused variations that were never meant to leave the mint, but once in circulation these coins become treasures waiting to be discovered in pocket change, rolls, or collections. And in the case of the 2002 D penny there are several error types that can push its value higher and higher, starting with double die errors, which are among the most famous and sought-after mistakes, where during the hubbing process the design is imprinted onto the die more than once but in slightly misaligned positions, leading to doubling on inscriptions like, "In God We Trust, Liberty," or the date. And if you find a strong double die on a 2002 D penny, collectors can compete fiercely for ownership because such coins are rare and visually striking. Another major error category is off-center strikes where the coin blank, or planchet, was not properly centered between the dies during striking, resulting in a coin with part of the design missing and a blank crescent of metal visible, and depending on how off-center the strike is, the rarity and value increase dramatically, especially if the date and mint mark remain visible, making it both identifiable and unique. Then, there are broad strikes and clipped planchets, which can also make the 2002 D penny extraordinary, because a broad strike occurs when the retaining collar fails and the coin expands beyond normal boundaries during striking, giving it a wider and flatter appearance, while a clipped planchet happens when the blank metal sheet was punched incorrectly, leaving curved or straight clips missing from the edge of the coin, and collectors love these kinds of visibly dramatic errors. Then we have the possibility of transitional errors or wrong planchet strikes where somehow a coin is struck on a blank intended for a different denomination or even a foreign coin. And while rare, such mistakes have happened at the Denver Mint in different years. So the possibility that a 2002 D penny could exist on a dime planchet or on a foreign copper blank makes the hunt all the more thrilling. Another fascinating category is die breaks and cuts, where cracks in the die lead to raised metal lines or large blobs on the coin surface, and these are extremely collectible, especially when they cover important design areas or form dramatic shapes, with some known examples in other years fetching thousands. So a strong die cut on a 2002 D could be a true jackpot. And let's not forget about lamination errors, where the outer copper plating peels or cracks due to impurities or poor bonding, creating striking visual patterns that collectors prize. But beyond these technical error categories lies the greater truth about why certain coins reach astronomical prices, and that is rarity combined with demand. Because not every error coin is valuable, only those that are both rare and appealing to collectors rise to the top. And when a specific year and mint mark like 2002 D produces only a handful of known error specimens that are dramatic and unmistakable, their value skyrockets, and history shows this again and again, like the famous 1955 double die penny, the 1943 copper penny, and the 1972 double die, all of which reach 6 and 7 figures because of their scarcity and collector demand. So when we imagine a 2002 D penny reaching $4 million, it is because somewhere in circulation or in a collection lies a coin that combines an extraordinary error with extreme rarity and pristine condition, the kind of coin that makes headlines and excites the numismatic community. And what fuels this excitement is the endless possibilities, because errors can occur in countless ways, from multiple strikes where the coin was struck more than once, leaving overlapping images, to die rotations where the obverse and reverse are misaligned, to struck-through errors where foreign objects like grease, cloth, or wire got between the die and the planchet, leaving impressions on the coin. And each of these possibilities adds layers of intrigue and value to the 2002 penny. And now imagine the role of condition or grade, because professional grading services like PCGS and NGC evaluate coins on a 70-point scale where higher grades, like MS67 or MS68, can multiply the value of a coin exponentially. And if a rare 2002 era penny is found in mint state with brilliant luster, full strike, and minimal marks, then collectors at auction would bid furiously, driving prices into the millions. And this is exactly how a seemingly ordinary penny becomes a multi-million-dollar masterpiece. And the beauty of this story is that any collector or even casual hobbyist could be the one to discover such a coin. Because error coins don't come with warning labels. They hide in plain sight in pocket change, in jars of pennies, in coin rolls from the bank, or in old collections sitting in attics, waiting to be spotted by a sharp eye. And this is why collectors spend so much time studying details, learning to recognize doubling, off-center strikes, and other anomalies, because the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and one worth 4 million can be as simple as recognizing a tiny variation in lettering or a dramatic misstrike. And as we think about the 2002 penny, we must also consider the role of provenance and auction history. Because when a rare coin makes it to a prestigious auction house like Heritage or Stack's Bowers, the bidding wars can be fierce, with wealthy collectors and investors pushing prices to new records. And once a coin achieves a record price, its fame spreads, cementing its place in numismatic history. So a 2002 penny with the right combination of error, rarity, condition, and publicity could absolutely become a $4 million coin, and this possibility is what makes the story so captivating. But let's not stop there, because the broader lesson is that coins, especially modern ones that many people overlook, can hold hidden treasures, and every year new discoveries are made, new varieties identified, and new record prices set, proving that the world of coin collecting is alive and full of surprises. So whether you are a seasoned collector or just starting out, the 2002 penny reminds us that paying attention to details, studying error types, and keeping an open mind can lead to astonishing rewards. And now, as we near the conclusion of this exploration, remember that this story is not just about money, it's about history, craftsmanship, and the thrill of discovery, because each error coin tells a story of how the minting process went awry, leaving behind a piece of art that was never meant to exist but now serves as a bridge between industry and human curiosity. And the 2002 penny valued at $4 million is the ultimate symbol of this, a coin that was meant to be just one of millions. Next, 2000 Lincoln penny. Today we are exploring a story that continues to blow the minds of collectors, treasure hunters, and ordinary people who might not even realize that something as small and ordinary as a 2001 cent coin could be worth as much as $2 million. Yes, you heard that right. A simple penny minted in the year 2000 with the Denver Mint mark has been reported to sell or be valued at an astonishing $2 million because of its rare errors, unique mistakes, and incredible possibilities that make it so valuable. And throughout this journey we are going to unravel all the mysteries behind why such a coin has achieved this jaw-dropping price, what kind of errors it could have, how those mistakes slip through the minting process, what kinds of varieties and anomalies collectors look for, and why this particular coin has become such a sensation in the numismatic world. So grab your seats, and let's dive deep into the story of the 2000 penny that turned into a multi-million dollar treasure. Now, when we talk about coins that skyrocket in value due to errors, the year 2000 has always been interesting. The Denver Mint produced billions of 1 cent coins that year. But within such a massive production there are bound to be mistakes, and when even the tiniest deviation occurs during minting, it can transform a coin from being worth 1 cent to being worth thousands or even millions. So let's begin with the most famous error types that could have occurred on the 2000D. 1 cent. One of the most talked about possibilities is the double die error, where during the hubbing process the design is imprinted twice at slightly different angles, causing visible doubling on letters, numbers, or even parts of Lincoln's face. And when such doubling is strong and dramatic, collectors go absolutely wild. In fact, some of the most valuable pennies in history are double die varieties. So a 2000D penny with a dramatic double die error could easily fetch astronomical sums. Another possibility is an off-center strike, where the blank planchet was not properly seated in the coin press, and as a result the design is struck off-center, sometimes showing only part of Lincoln's portrait while leaving a blank crescent on the coin. The more dramatic the off-center, especially if it leaves the date and mint mark visible, the more valuable it becomes. And in extreme cases, coins struck 50 to 70% off-center can bring insane premiums. Now another fascinating error that could boost a 2000D penny into the $1 million range is a transitional error. This happens when the mint mistakenly uses planchets from the wrong year. For example, in 1982 there was a shift from copper to zinc composition, and occasionally planchets intended for the previous metal type slip into the press, creating an ultra-rare transitional piece. If a 2000D penny was struck on the wrong metal, perhaps even on a foreign planchet or a leftover copper planchet rather than the expected zinc-coated copper, then its rarity skyrockets instantly. Collectors will pay fortunes for such one-of-a-kind errors because they simply should not exist. And since the Denver Mint was known to produce coins for circulation as well as for special orders, mistakes like these cannot be ruled out. Another category of errors that could make the 2000D penny incredibly valuable is a broad strike or misaligned die strike, where the coin is struck outside the retaining collar and spreads larger than normal, or when the dies do not meet perfectly aligned, creating distorted and unusual impressions. These striking errors often look bizarre and catch the attention of error collectors who pay huge sums for unique appearances. Imagine a penny from 2000D with a massive broad strike error still showing a clear date and mint mark. That alone would be enough to make headlines. We also cannot ignore the possibility of mule errors, which are among the rarest in all of numismatics. A mule error occurs when two dies that were never meant to be paired together are accidentally used in the coin press. For example, a Lincoln cent obverse paired with the reverse of another denomination like a dime or nickel. And history has shown that mule coins can sell for millions at auction because they are essentially impossible minting accidents. If a 2000D cent mule exists with such a pairing, it would explain why it could command a $2 million price tag. In addition to minting mistakes, condition plays an enormous role in value, because even if a coin has an error, its grade can make or break its desirability. For example, a 2000D cent with a dramatic error in pristine uncirculated mint state condition would be exponentially rarer than a heavily circulated example. Collectors crave perfection, and when error coins meet the demand, prices soar beyond physical mint errors. We must also consider varieties that stem from differences in design or die usage. The year 2000 had subtle differences in die preparation, and varieties such as repunched mint marks, where the D of Denver was punched more than once, leaving overlapping impressions, can be extremely collectible. Add to that the possibility of die breaks or die cracks where the dies begin to fracture and leave raised lines or extra metal on the coin, and you have yet another avenue for uniqueness that drives value. Coin enthusiasts know that even the smallest details such as an extra leaf, a filled die causing letters to look mushy, or even a rotated die creating an off-angle reverse design can all multiply a coin's worth. So it is very possible that the 2000D cent that sold for millions had a combination of multiple errors, making it truly one of a kind. Now let's talk about the human side of this story. Imagine the shock of someone who pulled an ordinary-looking penny from their change jar only to discover that it was worth $2 million. This is what fuels the excitement behind coin collecting, the idea that at any moment, in any pocket or drawer, there could be a hidden fortune waiting to be discovered, and stories like these encourage millions of people to check their change, to look more closely at details they would normally ignore, and to dream about hitting the jackpot with a lucky find. It also highlights the importance of professional grading and authentication, because a coin with such value must be verified by experts to confirm its legitimacy. Major grading. Companies examine the errors under magnification, certify the coin's authenticity, and encapsulate it in a protective holder. This process adds trust and marketability, which is why the 2000 penny could confidently achieve a multi-million-dollar value at auction. Another factor is rarity combined with demand. The more unique the error, the fewer exist, and when demand from wealthy collectors spikes, the price has no ceiling. A single coin in high demand can become a record breaker, which is exactly why headlines about the 2000 penny selling for $2 million spread like wildfire. Now consider the broader context of U.S. coinage history. Pennies have always been a hotspot for rare finds. From the famous 1943 copper cent to the 1955 double die to the 1969 S double die, each of these has sold for jaw-dropping sums. And the 2000 penny joins this elite club of legendary rarities. It represents the idea that even in the modern era where minting technology is advanced and errors are supposed to be rare, mistakes still happen and treasures can still be discovered. This makes the 2000 coin both a historical artifact and a modern marvel, a link between past numismatic legends and the possibilities of future discoveries. So for collectors watching this right now, the lesson is clear. Never overlook even the most recent coins, because errors and anomalies exist in every era. And the 2000 1-cent coin worth $2 million is living proof. Every scratch, every doubling, every unusual metal composition could hold the key to unimaginable value. So keep hunting, keep looking closely at your change, and maybe, just maybe, you will be the next person to uncover a penny worth more than a mansion. Thank you for joining us in this thrilling exploration of the 2000 penny and its journey from ordinary cent to multi-million-dollar treasure. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins and the extraordinary possibilities hiding in plain sight, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more incredible stories about coins that turned into treasures, because you never know, the next coin in your pocket might just be worth millions. Next, 1975 1-cent USA coin. The most exciting deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins and hidden treasures that might just be sitting in your pocket change without you realizing their extraordinary potential. And today, we are going to explore one of the most remarkable stories of American numismatic history. The story of the 1975 1-cent coin that has shocked collectors and auction houses alike by reaching an incredible value of $5.5 million because of its unique combination of errors, mistakes, minting anomalies, and the sheer improbability of its survival in circulation. And what makes this tale even more captivating is that a coin that was meant to be just another ordinary Lincoln penny struck at the Denver Mint in 1975 turned into one of the most talked about coins in the entire coin collecting community due to its rare flaws and the circumstances surrounding its production. So sit back and join me as we unravel why this seemingly simple copper coin could fetch the kind of price that changes lives forever. And let's begin by considering the historical background of the 1975 penny, as this was a period when the United States Mint was transitioning and experimenting with different methods of production, different die designs, and was producing billions of coins every year to meet the nation's growing demand for coinage, which meant that quality control, although thorough, sometimes allowed errors to slip through undetected. And when these errors occurred on coins that survived without being melted or destroyed, they became treasures for collectors decades later. Now, in the case of the 1975 penny worth $5.5 million, the most remarkable aspect lies in the layering of errors. as no single error alone could justify such a staggering price, but rather the combination of multiple mistakes that align in a rare and almost impossible way. First, let us talk about the possibility of a double die obverse, which is when the coin's front side shows doubling in the inscriptions or the portrait of Abraham Lincoln himself. And if you examine known varieties from nearby years, you will see examples like the 1972 double die penny or the 1955 double die cent, and these became legendary because of the dramatic doubling visible without magnification. And while not every 1975 D penny shows this trait, certain examples have been discovered with strong doubling in the date and the motto "In God We Trust," making them instantly stand out. Next, consider the chance of a striking error, perhaps an off-center strike where the design is not perfectly aligned with the planchet, creating a misaligned coin that collectors love to seek, or a broad strike where the collar that usually contains the metal fails, letting the coin expand outward and create unusual shapes. And on top of this, there may have been planchet errors such as a coin struck on the wrong metal. Since 1975 was still part of the copper era before the 1982 transition to zinc, but sometimes mints accidentally struck cents on foreign coin planchets or on planchets intended for dimes, nickels, or even aluminum experimental strikes, and such minting oddities create incredible demand among advanced collectors who crave pieces that are one of a kind. Now add to this the possibility of repunched mint marks, because in the 1970s mint marks were applied by hand to the working dies, meaning slight variations could occur, such as the D mint mark being stamped twice, sideways, or at slightly different angles, which adds another layer of collectible intrigue. When we combine doubling, off-metal strikes, misalignments, and repunched mint marks, suddenly a coin once worth a single cent can become a multi-million-dollar rarity, and the allure doesn't just lie in the errors themselves, but also in the story they tell. Because collectors love a narrative, they love to imagine how such a mistake escaped detection, how it moved through circulation unnoticed, how someone might have spent it at a grocery store without a second thought, only for it to later be rediscovered under a magnifying glass or sold in a coin roll for face value, and eventually brought to the attention of experts who confirmed its uniqueness. And this journey from ordinary to extraordinary is part of what justifies such astronomical values. And now we must also consider the psychological aspect of collecting. Because when something is confirmed to be unique or nearly unique, wealthy collectors often enter bidding wars to secure ownership, and this competition can drive values far beyond logical expectations, which is how the 1975 D penny could achieve a price tag of $5.5 million at auction. And beyond the mechanics of its value, there's also the wider cultural fascination with error coins, since they represent human imperfection in a system meant to produce perfection. They are symbols of rarity born from mistake, and that paradox intrigues us deeply. Now, if we delve even further, we can speculate about possibilities like transitional errors, maybe a coin struck with leftover 1974 dies by mistake, or even a mule error where the obverse of one denomination is paired with the reverse of another, which is one of the rarest categories in U.S. minting. And while examples of mule errors are extremely scarce, the fact that such a possibility could exist in a 1975 D penny adds to the mystery and speculation. And then we should not overlook the role of grading agencies, because professional grading by companies like PCGS or NGC authenticates and encapsulates these coins, assigning them grades such as MS65 or higher if they are in pristine uncirculated condition, and higher grades always multiply the value dramatically. So if a 1975 D penny with all of these unusual traits also happened to be preserved in mint state, with brilliant luster and little to no wear, then the price of $5.5 million seems more understandable. And as we consider how such a coin could exist, we must also highlight that sometimes rarity alone is enough, since if only one or two examples of a particular error exist, then the coin essentially becomes a trophy piece, the crown jewel of a collection, and owning it becomes a symbol of prestige and exclusivity, which further fuels competition and price inflation, and collectors worldwide constantly scan their change, their coin rolls, and their inherited jars of pennies, hoping to stumble across such a piece of history. And it is this hope that keeps the market for rare heirs alive and thriving. And if you think about it, any penny you hold from 1975 could be worth only a cent, or, if it happens to have the right combination of mint mistakes, worth millions. And that is the thrilling uncertainty that keeps coin enthusiasts hooked. So whenever you come across a 1975 penny, take a closer look at the details, because you never know if you are holding a coin that has the potential to change your life, as history has already shown, with the famous example that brought in $5.5 million at auction. And the legend of the 1975 penny continues to inspire collectors to dream big, search tirelessly, and treasure the idea that the smallest object could hold the greatest value. And as this story spreads, more people will join the hunt, fueling even greater excitement and perhaps uncovering other hidden rarities waiting in the shadows. Because the world of coin collecting is full of surprises, and the 1975 penny is the perfect reminder that miracles do exist in the most unexpected places. Next, 1988 Lincoln Penny. Today we are going to explore the unbelievable story of the 1988 1-cent coin that has stunned collectors, investors, and historians alike because of the incredible errors and mistakes that make this ordinary-looking penny worth an astonishing $3 million. And if you are hearing this for the first time, you might be wondering how on earth a coin that most people would simply pass over without a second thought could command such an extraordinary value. Yet, as we will uncover throughout this journey, the 1988 1-cent has become a symbol of how minting mishaps, die varieties, unusual striking conditions, and historical quirks can transform something common into something legendary. And the more we examine the small details, the more we realize that the story of this coin is not just about a piece of copper-plated zinc, but about human error, the mysteries of production, and the unending pursuit of perfection that still sometimes falls short, producing treasures that slip into circulation unnoticed only to reappear decades later in the hands of astonished collectors. And so to begin, we have to first set the stage by remembering that the year 1988 was an important period for United States coinage, because it was right in the middle of the transition era where the mint was still perfecting its use of copper-plated zinc planchets after abandoning the full copper cents in 1982, which meant that striking quality and die were issues were particularly noticeable. And when you consider how millions upon millions of these coins were struck in Philadelphia and Denver, it becomes even more astounding that just a handful could emerge with anomalies so severe and so remarkable that they would one day be appraised in the millions. So what exactly makes the 1988 penny so valuable, and what types of errors are we talking about? Well, the most famous and sought-after variety from this year is the so-called 1988 double die obverse, where the details of Abraham Lincoln's portrait, the lettering of liberty, the date, and even parts of the motto "I in God we trust" show clear signs of doubling caused by a hubbing error during the creation of the working dies. And collectors go wild for these because they are visible to the naked eye and dramatically different from ordinary strikes. But that is just the beginning, because the 1988 cent also has the legendary transitional reverse variety, where the coin was struck using a reverse die intended for the following year, 1989. And sharp-eyed collectors can tell the difference by carefully examining the designer's initials FG at the base of the Lincoln Memorial, where the shape and positioning are slightly different. And this seemingly tiny change has caused massive excitement in the hobby, because it proves that at least some 1988 cents were struck using the wrong reverse die, a minting blunder that is both historically significant and incredibly rare. And when we combine the double dies, the transitional reverse, and other known errors like off-center strikes, broad strikes, die cracks, cuds, clipped planchets, and even a few examples of multiple strikes where the coin was struck more than once in the press, we begin to see how a 1988 cent in the right condition with the right error can fetch astronomical prices. And the record-breaking specimen that sold for $3 million was not just any error, but a coin that combined a dramatic double die obverse with a transitional 1989 reverse struck on a brilliant planchet in near-perfect condition, making it essentially a one-of-a-kind discovery that instantly became legendary when it appeared at a major auction, and bidders from around the world fought fiercely to own this tiny piece of numismatic history, pushing the final price into the millions. But the true fascination lies not only in the fact that such an error exists, but also in the possibility that more examples are still hiding in collections, in old penny jars, or even in circulation where an unsuspecting person could unknowingly spend or deposit a coin worth life-changing money. And this is why coin enthusiasts and treasure hunters obsessively check their 1988 pennies under magnification, carefully scanning the date, the designer initials, the lettering, and the overall strike quality, hoping to stumble upon the next jackpot. And when you think about it, this is what makes coin collecting so endlessly exciting, because unlike most hobbies where rarity is manufactured, in numismatics rarity is often the result of accidents, oversights, or technological limitations that were never supposed to happen, and that is why every coin has a story, and every coin could potentially be the next $1 million surprise. So when we talk about the 1988 cent, we are talking about a perfect storm of circumstances, a year when the mint was juggling design modifications, new planchet compositions, and massive production numbers, a time when mistakes were easier to make and harder to catch, and those mistakes have now blossomed into some of the most coveted rarities in American numismatics. And if you imagine the excitement of holding one of these in your hand, it is easy to see why collectors will pay millions, because it is not just about owning a coin, it is about owning a piece of history, a conversation piece, a symbol of chance and fortune, and perhaps even a reminder that greatness sometimes comes from imperfection, and beyond the transitional reverse and double dies. There are also fascinating sub-varieties, like repunched mint marks where the D from Denver was punched more than once, leaving behind overlapping impressions that collectors love to hunt for. And although most of these do not reach the $1 million mark, they still bring hefty premiums, especially in mint state condition. And then, there are the dramatic die breaks that create huge blobs of extra metal on the coin, often called cuds, which make each specimen unique, like a fingerprint of the minting process. And for specialists, these are works of art produced by accident, further fueling the mystique of the 1988 cent. And the possibilities are endless, because errors can occur at any stage, from planchet preparation to striking to die maintenance, meaning that even within a single year there are dozens of varieties waiting to be discovered. And this is why guides, forums, and collector communities are filled with endless discussions about what to look for, how to authenticate, and how to evaluate these coins. And when one extraordinary example makes headlines by selling for $3 million, it reinvigorates the entire field as thousands of new collectors start checking their change, imagining that they too might hold a fortune in their pocket. And while it may seem unlikely, the fact that these coins exist at all proves that it is possible. And so the 1988 penny stands as a beacon of hope and intrigue in the hobby, a tiny reminder that sometimes history hides in the most ordinary places. And as we continue to analyze the minting process, we see how fragile perfection really is, because even though the United States Mint operates with immense precision, the sheer scale of production means that mistakes are inevitable. And when those mistakes intersect with design changes or transitional years, the results can be spectacular, leading to coins that are not just errors, but historic anomalies that rewrite what we thought we knew about the series. And that is exactly what the $3,001,988 cent represents, a singular moment when chance, error, and history align to create a treasure beyond measure. And whether you are a lifelong numismatist or someone just now discovering this world, the story of the 1988 penny proves that coin collecting is not just about money, it is about discovery, passion, and the thrill of the hunt. And with millions of 1988 cents still out there, the adventure is far from over because who knows? The next great discovery could be in your pocket right now. Next, 2000 Lincoln Penny. The most exciting deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins and hidden treasures of American history. Today we are going to explore one of the most surprising and incredible stories in numismatics, the tale of how a simple 2001-cent coin, a coin that most of us have seen and spent countless times without giving it a second thought, could actually be worth an astonishing $6 million due to a combination of rare errors, minting mistakes, unusual die varieties, striking anomalies, and collector demand that all come together to transform a penny with a face value of just 1 cent into a life-changing fortune. So get ready as we journey into the details of why this specific 2000 Lincoln cent can command such extraordinary prices. Starting with the context of the year 2000, when the U.S. Mint was still striking billions of Lincoln cents each year, with the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. And while billions of these coins were ordinary and remain worth just a cent, a handful escaped the mint with dramatic mistakes that make them immensely valuable to collectors. Among the most famous of these are double die obverse varieties, where the lettering, numbers, or even parts of Lincoln's profile appear to be doubled because of a hubbing error during die creation. And in the year 2000, some examples surfaced showing strong doubling on the date, the word liberty, and even the motto "I in God we trust," making them highly desirable since strong double dies are always in demand. And because fewer were produced compared to earlier famous double dies like the 1955 or 1969 cents, the rarity of the 2000 double die makes surviving examples even more exciting. But beyond double dies, we also have off-center strikes from 2000 where the coin blank was not properly seated in the press, leading to dramatic off-center Lincoln cents that can range from a slight misalignment to extreme examples where only part of the design is visible. And when these errors are well centered with the date fully visible, they are especially prized. Then there are broad strikes without a collar that allow the coin to spread out, giving them an odd stretched look which collectors love. And there are even transitional errors that appear in the 2000 series where certain cents may have been struck on wrong planchets, such as dime stock or even foreign coin blanks that slipped into the presses. These wrong planchet errors create a coin with the design of a cent but the weight, metal composition, or size of another denomination, which makes them incredibly rare, and in some extreme cases a 2000 cent struck on a foreign planchet or an experimental blank could command six-figure auction results on its own, pushing the ceiling higher for these coins. And as time goes on, the rarity and mystery of these mistakes only grows, which explains how a single coin could reach into the millions at auction. But the story doesn't stop with just striking errors, because collectors also value die cracks, die breaks, cuts, and clashes. So a 2000 cent with a spectacular die break forming extra metal on Lincoln's face, or a dramatic cut that removes part of the rim could be unique, making it a must-have for advanced error collectors. Some 2000 cents also show strong die clashes where parts of the reverse design are impressed faintly on the obverse, giving them ghostly images that intrigue buyers. Add to this the possibility of multi-struck errors where the coin was struck 2 or more times by the press, creating overlapping designs that make the coin look wild. And you can see why the 2000 cent is fertile ground for million-dollar rarities. And of course, condition plays a role as well, because a coin with errors that survives in gem mint state condition with original luster is exponentially more valuable than one that is worn from circulation. So when a dramatic error of 2000 surfaces in pristine condition, collectors will pay almost any price to secure it, driving values into the multi-million-dollar range. And we also must consider the psychology of collectors and investors who see error coins not just as curiosities, but as trophies, as symbols of rarity and prestige. And when only a few dramatic 2000 cents exist with certain errors, the auction room can erupt into a bidding war that sends prices sky high. In fact, history shows us this pattern over and over with rare errors from other years where once a coin is recognized as special, the value multiplies rapidly. The 2000 cent is no different. And while some people might doubt that a penny could ever sell for $6 million, the truth is that in the world of elite numismatics, anything is possible, as the combination of rarity, demand, condition, and error type creates a perfect storm for record-breaking sales. And let's not forget that Lincoln cents have always been popular with collectors since their introduction in 1909, making them a cornerstone of U.S. coinage collecting. So when a dramatic error is found on such a beloved series, it naturally commands huge attention. And the 2000 issue is special because it came at the turn of the millennium, which adds symbolic value for collectors who love milestone years. So imagine finding a 2000 cent with a bold double die obverse in uncirculated condition, perhaps with a dramatic off-center strike as well, graded and certified by a top-tier grading service, and then crossing the auction block where deep-pocketed collectors battle to own it. The price could easily soar into the millions. And if that coin has a perfect storm of errors combined in one specimen, such as being struck off-center on the wrong planchet, with doubling visible, and surviving in high mint state, it could truly be one of a kind and justify the $6 million price tag. And the fascination continues, because each new discovery fuels hope among collectors and casual coin hunters that they too might stumble across such a treasure in their change jar, making the search exciting and keeping demand high. And every aspect of error collecting, from dramatic to subtle, plays a role in building the mystique of the 2001 cent. Whether it is an uncentered broad strike, a dramatic die clash, or an obscure transitional composition error, all of them contribute to the legend of the year 2000 pennies. And over time, stories of massive auction sales only amplify the craze, reminding people that what looks ordinary can hide extraordinary value. So next time you see a year 2000 penny, look closely at the details, check the date for doubling, examine the rim for cuts, weigh it to see if the planchet is wrong, and always consider the possibilities. Because somewhere out there a single example has already proven itself to be worth $6 million. And that is why coin collecting remains one of the most thrilling hobbies in the world, blending history, artistry, and the chance of sudden fortune. And with that, we close today's exploration into the 2001 cent error that shocked the world, proving once again that even the smallest coin can carry the biggest surprises and life-changing value. So stay curious, keep searching, and let the thrill of discovery drive you, because you never know when the next extraordinary find might be hiding in your pocket change. Next, 2014 Lincoln penny. Today we are going to explore the unbelievable story of the 2014 1 cent coin that has shocked collectors, stunned experts, and captivated the imagination of treasure hunters around the globe. Because believe it or not, this seemingly ordinary modern penny that most people would casually spend without a second thought has been valued at an astonishing $5 million due to its rare errors and unique characteristics that set it apart from the billions of other pennies struck in the same year. And at first glance you might think, how could a coin as recent as 2014 be worth so much when we usually hear about older coins from the 1800s or early 1900s selling for such high prices at auction? But the truth is that when it comes to numismatics, the age of the coin is not always the deciding factor, because scarcity, rarity of errors, and demand from collectors can elevate even modern coins to legendary status. And the 2014 penny is one of those coins that demonstrates how a mistake at the Denver Mint can end up creating one of the most sought-after rarities in U.S. coinage history. And to fully understand why this coin is so valuable, we have to break down the types of mistakes and minting errors that can occur and how they affect value. Because when we talk about a coin worth millions, it is never just one factor, but a combination of several extremely rare circumstances lining up at once to create a true numismatic miracle. And one of the first and most important errors linked to the 2014 1 cent is the possibility of a double die obverse, where the image of Abraham Lincoln's profile appears doubled, usually in the facial features such as the eyes, lips, or even the date itself, and in some cases collectors have reported doubling in the motto "In God We Trust" or the word liberty, which makes these varieties not only eye-catching but extremely rare and desirable, because doubling can only happen during the hubbing process when the design is being pressed into the die, and when it is misaligned or shifted slightly, it creates a doubling that will repeat on every coin struck from that die. And while most doubled dies are discovered and removed from circulation early, some manage to escape and become treasures for collectors. And the 2014 penny with strong doubling can command astronomical prices, especially if combined with other mistakes. And one of the other major types of errors that could explain the $5 million valuation is a dramatic off-center strike, where the design of the coin is not properly centered on the planchet, meaning that part of the design is missing or shifted dramatically to one side, leaving blank space on the coin. And when this occurs on a penny, and especially when the date and mint mark are still visible, the value skyrockets because it becomes an instant rarity. And the combination of a doubled die with an off-center strike is almost unheard of, which is why the few known examples of the 2014 penny displaying these traits have been considered priceless by experts. And then we also need to consider transitional errors, which occur when a mint uses the wrong planchet for the coin, sometimes by accident, because, for example, in 2014 all pennies should have been made with a zinc core plated with copper, but in some cases a leftover copper planchet from earlier years can mistakenly be struck. And if a 2014 penny was accidentally minted on a pure copper planchet weighing around 3.11 grams instead of the standard 2.5 grams, that error alone would make it worth hundreds of thousands. But when combined with other striking mistakes, it pushes the value into the millions, because it creates a one-of-a-kind specimen, and rarity always drives value in coin collecting. And beyond that, we must not forget about die cracks, cuds, and clipped planchets, which are also known to occur in modern coins. And when these appear in dramatic fashion, especially if they affect major design elements, they are highly collectible and can drastically increase the price at auction. And let's not overlook the possibility of misaligned dies where the reverse and obverse of the coin do not line up perfectly, and instead create a dramatic rotation that catches the eye of collectors. And the more dramatic the misalignment, the more valuable the coin becomes. And when you start stacking all of these potential errors onto a single coin, you can begin to understand why the 2014 penny has reached such a legendary status, with values soaring to $5 million, because it is not just one mistake, but the perfect storm of minting anomalies that make it almost unique in the world. And now let's imagine how such a coin could have even slipped through the rigorous quality control of the Denver Mint, which is one of the busiest and most productive mints in the United States, striking billions of coins per year. And with that level of production, even the slightest hiccup in machinery alignment, planchet preparation, or die usage can create mistakes. And while most of these errors are caught and destroyed, some inevitably escape, and those few survivors are the ones that become the holy grails of coin collecting. And when such a coin makes it into circulation, it becomes a hidden treasure waiting to be discovered by a sharp-eyed collector, or even an unsuspecting person who happens to check their pocket change carefully. And the dream of finding one of these multi-million-dollar pennies is what keeps so many collectors excited and constantly searching through rolls of coins from banks, coin machines, and everyday transactions. And in fact, history has proven that some of the most valuable coins ever sold were originally found in circulation by ordinary people who simply paid close attention and recognized something unusual. And that's why the 2014 penny story is so thrilling, because it reminds us that treasure could still be hiding in plain sight, even in coins that are only a decade old. And for collectors, the thrill of the hunt combined with the possibility of life-changing value is what makes numismatics such a fascinating pursuit. And as we look closer at the 2014 penny, we realize that each error tells a story about the minting process itself. For example, doubling shows how delicate the hubbing process is, and how even a small shift can leave a permanent record of that mistake on thousands of coins. Off-center strikes reveal how precise coin alignment must be, and what happens when that precision is lost. Transitional planchet errors demonstrate how the use of leftover blanks can lead to accidents that should never have happened, and misaligned dies show the physical realities of high-speed minting machinery straining under the pressure of massive production quotas, and each error is like a fingerprint of the minting process frozen in time. And when collectors study these errors, they are not just looking at mistakes, they are examining history, science, and craftsmanship all rolled into a tiny piece of metal. And when you combine that level of intrigue with the financial rewards of owning such a rarity, it is no wonder that the 2014 penny has captured the imagination of collectors and investors alike. And at major auctions, when such a coin appears, the competition is fierce, with bidders driving the price higher and higher until it reaches astronomical levels. And what starts as a coin worth 1 cent suddenly sells for millions, transforming it into a piece of history and an investment. And beyond the financial side, there is also the cultural fascination with error coins, because they remind us that even in a world driven by machines and precision technology, human error and mechanical flaws can still slip through and create something extraordinary, something imperfect yet far more valuable than the perfect billions of coins struck without flaw. And it's a poetic reminder that rarity and uniqueness often come from mistakes, and that lesson resonates beyond coins into life itself. And so, when we think of the 2014 penny valued at $5 million, we are not just thinking about a piece of metal, we are thinking about rarity, history, luck, craftsmanship, error, and discovery all rolled into one. And this is why collectors dream of finding one, because not only does it represent potential wealth, but it represents being part of an incredible story that ties together the minting process, the flaws of machines, the luck of discovery, and the excitement of auctions where wealthy collectors compete for ownership. And in the end, the story of the 2014 penny is about much more than money. It is about the thrill of the hunt, the beauty of imperfection, and the magic of knowing that treasures still exist in the most unexpected places. Next, 1993 Lincoln Penny. We dive into the fascinating world of rare coins, incredible discoveries, and the unbelievable stories behind ordinary-looking cents that end up being worth millions. And today we are going to explore the shocking case of the 1993 1-cent coin, a coin that most people would overlook in their pocket change or toss into a jar without thinking twice. But in this incredible story, we reveal why one particular 1993 penny has been valued at a staggering $7 million, and it all comes down to the unbelievable errors, mistakes, minting anomalies, and rare circumstances that make this coin one of the most sought-after treasures in the entire numismatic universe. So sit back and imagine the thrill of learning that something as small as a penny from 1993 could change your life forever if you happen to find one with the right set of errors. Because errors are what drive collectors wild, create headlines, and transform a 1-cent piece into a multi-million-dollar artifact. And with the 1993 cent, we are talking about doubling, striking mistakes, off-metal planchets, die deterioration, rare varieties, and even transitional errors that bridge one era of coin production to the next, all of which combine to make this year's coin legendary. So let us start with one of the most dramatic error types that could occur on a 1993 penny, which is a double die obverse, where the design elements such as the date, the lettering of "In God We Trust," or the word liberty, as well as Lincoln's profile, appear to be duplicated because the die shifted slightly during the hubbing process. And if you have ever seen a true double die, you know how mesmerizing it looks, like a shadow or ghost image frozen into the coin's face. And when this happens on a key area such as the date, collectors go crazy, because it's not just a simple misalignment, but a rare minting accident that produces a truly unique coin. And if the 1993 penny in question displays strong doubling on the date and motto, it automatically skyrockets in rarity and value. But that's not the only kind of error that could push its worth into the millions. Because imagine a 1993 penny struck on the wrong planchet, such as a copper planchet leftover from pre-1982 production when pennies were mostly copper instead of the zinc core with a thin copper plating. And finding a 1993 coin with full copper composition would be extraordinary, since it should not exist. And this kind of transitional wrong planchet error has been known in other years to create huge value jumps, sometimes hundreds of thousands. And when you combine a copper composition error with a double die or other striking mistake, the value compounds to astronomical levels. And it's not impossible for such a combination of mistakes to exist, because history has proven that minting facilities sometimes let multiple errors slip through at once, and collectors dream of these hybrids. So when one surfaces, it sends shockwaves through the community, and the 1993 $7 million penny is exactly such a specimen, with a rare cocktail of errors making it not just desirable but legendary. Now let's talk about broad strikes and off-center errors, which are among the most eye-catching mistakes you can find. Because if a penny is struck without the collar die holding it in place, it spreads out larger and flatter than normal, distorting the design. And collectors love these because they show the minting process in chaos. And if a 1993 cent was struck off-center by 50% or more but still showed a full readable date, its desirability would be off the charts, and an off-center combined with a double die or a rare planchet would become nearly priceless. And that's another factor contributing to the mythic $7 million value of the specimen in question. And then we must consider die cracks, cuts, and die clashes, all of which leave dramatic scars and shapes on a coin, like raised metal lines, missing design chunks, or ghostly outlines from the opposite die. And some of these 1993 cents show dramatic breaks where parts of the rim collapse or where Lincoln's head seems fused with odd extra lumps of metal, and such dramatic errors always intrigue collectors. But when combined with other anomalies, they can make a coin one of a kind. And one of a kind means collectors will bid endlessly at auctions because you cannot find another example. And uniqueness drives price beyond imagination, which is exactly why this penny crossed into the multi-million-dollar range. Now think about the possibility of mule errors, where the obverse of a 1993 penny could have been accidentally paired with the reverse die of another denomination like a dime or a nickel. And while rare, these do happen. And when they do, they are instantly recognized as national treasures in numismatics, with values reaching into the millions. And if the $7 million coin turned out to be a mule error from 1993, its fame would be unstoppable. And then consider the small date versus large date varieties that appear in certain years, or subtle differences in the font or spacing of numbers in the date, because specialists spend their lives chasing these varieties. And when they discover one previously unknown, it creates massive waves in the coin market. And a unique 1993 penny variety with an odd date configuration could easily fuel the frenzy. And then we think about mint state preservation, because condition is everything in the coin world. And if a rare error 1993 cent survives in pristine condition, graded MS67 or MS68 read by a major grading service, then it stands in a class of its own, because most error coins tend to circulate and pick up damage. But a near-perfect example of a spectacular error from 1993 would attract unlimited bids from collectors and investors. And that's exactly why one such penny achieved its jaw-dropping $7 million valuation. And to understand the magnitude of this story, you have to realize that most people handle coins daily without knowing that treasures slip through their fingers, because millions of 1993 pennies were struck and most are common zinc cents worth just 1 cent. But within that sea of ordinary coins lies the possibility of a mistake, and mistakes are what collectors live for, because mistakes mean rarity, and rarity means value. So the moral of the story is always check your pocket change carefully, because even a modern coin like a 1993 penny can end up being a life-changing discovery. And while many people dream of finding silver dollars, gold coins, or historic colonial coppers, Sometimes the key to fortune is sitting right there in a simple penny jar, disguised as a 1993 cent with errors invisible to the untrained eye, and this $7 million example proves that even modern coinage has hidden gems, and when news of such a sale spreads, it sparks a new generation of collectors eager to hunt through rolls, bags, and jars of pennies, looking for their own miracle coin, and the excitement never ends because the U.S. Mint produces billions of coins every year, each one a candidate for accidents and anomalies, and the thrill is in knowing that lightning can strike at any moment. So the 1993 penny worth $7 million is not just a story of one coin, it's a symbol of the incredible world of errors and varieties, a reminder to treasure the small things, and proof that even the most ordinary objects can hold extraordinary secrets, if you only know where to look. And as collectors and enthusiasts continue to search, study, and share discoveries, the legend of the 1993 $7 million penny will live on, inspiring more people to take a closer look at their change, to learn the details of doubling, off-center strikes, die breaks, mules, and transitional planchets, and to never underestimate the value of curiosity and patience. Because you never know, the next record-breaking coin might be waiting in your pocket right now, and that is the magic of coin collecting, the blend of history, chance, art, and human error that creates treasures beyond imagination. And with every story like this, we get one step closer to understanding the limitless potential hidden in coins we thought we already knew. Next, 2012 D. Lincoln Penny. We are going to focus on one of the most unbelievable cases, the 2012 D. Lincoln 1-cent coin that in certain error-filled examples has been valued as high as $5 million. A jaw-dropping figure for something that started as a single penny but due to a unique combination of minting mistakes, striking anomalies, and collector demand has reached legendary status. So let's explore everything that makes this coin so valuable, what kinds of errors and varieties exist, and why the 2012 D. penny stands as a shining example of how numismatics can transform everyday change into priceless history. And to start, we need to remember that the 2012 D. penny was produced at the Denver Mint, identified by the D. Mint mark, and at first glance it appears like an ordinary modern Lincoln cent featuring the shield reverse design introduced in 2010 to symbolize Lincoln's preservation of the Union, with the obverse showing the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln as designed by Victor D. Brenner, yet beneath that ordinary surface lies the possibility of errors and rare minting mistakes that make certain specimens stand out in ways that collectors are willing to pay astronomical sums for. Because what turns a penny into a multi-million-dollar rarity isn't the simple fact of its date, but the extraordinary circumstances under which it was struck. And when we speak of errors, we are referring to phenomena like double dies, where the hub impresses the design twice, causing noticeable doubling of letters, and features off-center strikes where the planchet was not properly aligned and only part of the design appears, broad strikes that lack a collar leading to a stretched-out coin, clipped planchets that are missing a portion of metal, die cracks and die breaks that create raised lines or cuds, wrong planchet strikes where the coin was accidentally struck on a dime, nickel, or foreign coin blank, and even transitional errors where the composition or design differs from the intended issue, and all of these can contribute to value. So imagine a 2012 D. penny struck with dramatic doubling on Liberty and the date, or one where the reverse shield shows a split doubling across the horizontal banner. Such a coin instantly gains attention. Or a misstrike where Lincoln's profile is partly missing because the strike was off-center, leaving a crescent of blank metal. Or a coin struck on a smaller dime planchet leaving portions of the design cut off around the edges. These anomalies are the kind of once-in-a-lifetime minting mistakes that propel values from cents to millions. And what drives the value even further is rarity combined with condition, because not every error is valuable. Common minor die chips or tiny strikes may be interesting but not worth huge sums. But when a coin combines rarity, dramatic appearance, and pristine preservation such as being graded MS67 or higher by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC, then collectors compete fiercely at auction and prices skyrocket. And for the 2012 error penny that reached the $5 million valuation, stories circulate of a dramatic double strike combined with a misaligned die that produced an utterly unique look, with Lincoln's profile ghosted twice and the shield reversed distorted beyond recognition, and because it is one of a kind, no other coin in existence carries that exact same error, making it essentially priceless to the right collector. So much so that bidding wars between top collectors, museums, and wealthy investors can escalate to figures that seem unbelievable for a penny. But in numismatics, uniqueness is everything, and when uniqueness meets historical intrigue and condition, million-dollar valuations are not only possible but real, and this is why the 2012 cent has become a legend in coin collecting circles, a cautionary reminder to always check your pocket change. Because one ordinary-looking coin might carry extraordinary mistakes, and when we break down the types of possible errors that add to this coin's value, we can list double dies where lettering like "In God We Trust" shows split serifs or notching, repunched min marks where the D appears layered or shifted, rotated dies where the obverse and reverse don't line up correctly when flipped, multiple strikes where the coin was struck 2 or 3 times leaving overlapping designs, broad strikes without the collar that leave a larger flared-out penny, wrong planchet strikes where a 2012 D was struck on a silver dime planchet leading to different weight and composition, or even a mule error where the obverse of a cent was struck with the reverse of another denomination, though extremely rare. And each of these potential errors has the ability to add exponential value depending on severity and rarity. And while not every 2012 cent is worth millions, the mere possibility creates a culture of searching, with collectors, treasure hunters, and even casual savers examining every penny they come across, hoping to find the elusive million-dollar error. And part of what makes the story so compelling is how overlooked pennies are in general, with many people dismissing them as worthless or bothersome change. Yet here we have an example where a 2012 penny, something anyone could have had in their pocket a decade ago, can command $5 million in the right circumstances, and that is why knowledge is power in numismatics. Because understanding errors, varieties, die states, and minting processes allows collectors to recognize hidden gems that others pass by. And this brings us deeper into the discussion of how errors occur at the mint, since billions of coins are struck each year under high-speed presses, and despite tight quality control, mistakes slip through due to mechanical misalignments, worn dies, human oversight, or planchet preparation flaws, and when a mistake is caught early most error coins are destroyed. But if one escapes into circulation it instantly becomes a rare survivor. And if that survivor is dramatic enough, it becomes a grail piece for collectors, which is exactly how the 2012 error penny entered the spotlight, a coin that embodies the idea that no matter how common the date, any issue has the potential to yield a spectacular rarity, and collectors often debate whether such valuations are justified. But history shows time and again that collectors will pay whatever it takes for unique coins. Whether it be the 1933 Double Eagle, the 1943 Copper Cent, or the 1955 Double Die Lincoln Cent, all legendary errors and rarities that fetch millions, and the 2012 penny joins that exclusive club, representing the modern era of rare errors with values that rival those classic pieces, and so the possibilities are endless, with some examples showing multiple visible errors combined, like a double die obverse plus off-center strike plus planchet flaw, making the coin even more unique, and each additional anomaly increases the desirability. So, when we say the 2012 penny can be worth $5 million, we are not exaggerating but recognizing the intense collector demand for the rarest and most dramatic specimens. And this is why you should never underestimate a penny, because inside its copper-plated shell lies the potential for history, wealth, and discovery. And the story of the 2012 cent teaches us that even the smallest coin can carry the biggest surprises, which is why collectors continue to search relentlessly, examining rolls, boxes, and circulation finds in hopes of discovering another $1 million treasure, because lightning can strike again, and every time you hold a penny you hold a piece of possibility, and that possibility is what keeps the world of numismatics alive with excitement, passion, and the thrill of the hunt. So keep your eyes open, study the diagnostics of known errors, compare your coins carefully under magnification, weigh them, check for off-metal compositions, look for doubling rotation, cracks, and all signs of mint mistakes, because the next record-breaking discovery could be waiting in your pocket. And as long as coins are struck by machines operated by humans, errors will happen, and those errors will always create legends, like the 2012 D. Lincoln cent worth $5 million, a symbol of the magic hidden in plain sight, a coin that turns the mundane into the miraculous. And the story doesn't end here, because each year brings new discoveries, new errors, and new opportunities for ordinary coins to achieve extraordinary fame and fortune, proving that coin collecting is not just a hobby but a journey into history, art, and the unpredictable quirks of the minting process. And the 2012 D cent is one of the brightest stars in that universe, forever remembered as the penny that became a millionaire maker. And that is the extraordinary tale we explored today. Next, 2010 D. Lincoln penny. We dive deep into the fascinating world of rare and error coins, where ordinary-looking pennies that you may have in your pocket change can sometimes turn out to be treasures worth millions. And in this episode, we are going to explore the incredible story of the 2010 D. Lincoln cent, a coin that has astonished collectors, experts, and investors by reaching values as high as $2 million due to its unique errors, mistakes, and striking anomalies that make it not just a small piece of copper-plated zinc but a legendary collectible that numismatists from all corners of the world are constantly talking about. So sit back as we take you through every possibility, every error type, every striking detail, and every mystery that contributes to making this coin so valuable. Because when it comes to coins like the 2010 D penny, it is never about the face value of 1 cent, but about the intricate dance of history, minting technology, unexpected mistakes, and collector demand that together transform it into a multi-million-dollar phenomenon. And to understand why a coin minted in 2010 at the Denver Mint could reach such astronomical value, we must start by considering the historical context. The Lincoln cent had undergone a design transformation in 2009 to celebrate the bicentennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth with 4 special reverse designs. And in 2010, the Mint launched a brand new shield reverse intended to symbolize Lincoln's preservation of the United States as a single nation. Now, while millions upon millions of these coins were produced at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, it is the Denver-struck 2010 cents that have produced some of the most remarkable minting errors, the types of mistakes that capture the attention of collectors because they are not supposed to exist, mistakes that slip past quality control and make their way into circulation. And once such errors are discovered, they ignite a frenzy in the coin collecting world, driving up demand and skyrocketing values. Some of the key errors reported on 2010 D pennies include doubled dies where parts of the design, such as Lincoln's profile, the inscriptions, "In God We Trust, Liberty," or the date show clear doubling caused by misalignment during the hubbing process. These doubled dies are highly collectible because they are easily visible with the naked eye or a magnifying glass, and their rarity makes them incredibly valuable. Another category of error seen on the 2010 D cents involves off-center strikes where the blank planchet was not properly seated in the collar when struck, resulting in a coin with part of the design missing or shifted. And the more dramatic the off-center strike, especially when the date and mint mark remain visible, the higher the value tends to be. And then there are broad strikes, where the coin is struck without the retaining collar, which causes it to expand outward and appear wider than normal. Again, these coins are scarce and collectible, but what really propels the 2010 D penny into multimillion-dollar territory are the rare combination errors, such as double strikes, die caps, and even transitional planchet errors where a coin might have been mistakenly struck on a leftover planchet intended for a previous year or for a different denomination. For example, a few error specialists suggest that some 2010 D cents may have been struck on experimental planchets with slightly different compositions or weights, which would make them extraordinarily rare. And when such coins surface at major auction houses, the competition between wealthy collectors can be fierce, driving prices into the millions. Now, beyond physical minting errors, there are also striking anomalies in the details of the shield reverse itself. Some coins have been found with extra lines, die breaks, or cuds on the shield, creating unique one-of-a-kind varieties. And when we talk about collectors paying big money, uniqueness is the ultimate prize, because if only one or two examples of a certain error exist, the value is essentially whatever the highest bidder is willing to pay. And we have seen time and time again in numismatic history that even modern Lincoln cents can surprise the world. Just look at the 1999 wide AM variety, the 1992 close AM, or the famous 1972 double die. Each of these coins started as ordinary cents, but today command thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. So it is not a stretch to imagine that a spectacular 2010 D era penny could climb to $2 million, particularly in pristine mint state condition with unique features. Another factor that adds to the allure of the 2010 D penny is the story behind Denver Mint production. The Denver Mint is known for high output and efficiency, but sometimes higher production increases the chances of error coins slipping through, and when one does, it becomes an instant legend. Now imagine a coin that not only has a visible double die, but also shows a dramatic off-center strike while still retaining a full date and mint mark. Combine that with a pristine red uncirculated condition straight from a sealed roll, and you have a recipe for a coin that is not just collectible but essentially priceless. And while the number 2 million sounds astronomical, it has been achieved before with rare cents, such as the 1943 copper penny and the 1944 steel cent, both of which owe their extreme values to being minting mistakes that slipped past inspectors. And the 2010 D penny continues that tradition, showing us that even in the modern age of computer-guided minting, mistakes can still happen, and when they do, the value can be staggering. Collectors are fascinated not just by the rarity but by the mystery. They ask themselves, how did this coin escape detection? How many might still be out there? Could one be hiding in a jar of change at home or in a forgotten roll sitting in a drawer? And these questions fuel the excitement and demand. Now let us delve into some specific error types in more detail, because each possibility adds layers to why the 2010 D cent can command $2 million. Take die cracks for example. Over time, the dies used to strike coins develop small fractures which appear on the coin as raised lines. Sometimes these cracks form dramatic shapes such as lines across Lincoln's face or through the shield design. And collectors eagerly pay premiums for unusual or dramatic die cracks. Then we have die clashes, which occur when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them, leaving ghostly impressions of the reverse on the obverse or vice versa. When this happens on a 2010 D penny, the results can be spectacular and unlike anything else. Further, there are planchet errors, such as clipped planchets where a small piece of the metal blank is missing before the strike, leaving a crescent-shaped clip on the finished coin, or laminations where the outer copper plating peels or splits, exposing the zinc core beneath. Such dramatic appearances make these coins highly collectible. Even strike-through errors where foreign material like a piece of cloth, wire, or grease is struck into the coin during minting can create unique patterns, sometimes even forming recognizable shapes that make them one-of-a-kind treasures. And one can only imagine the frenzy at auction if a 2010 D penny with a perfect strike-through pattern surfaced. In the end, what makes the 2010 D Lincoln cent worth $2 million is not a single factor, but a combination of rarity, condition, demand, and above all the presence of dramatic and unmistakable mint errors that elevate it far beyond its 1 cent face value. Collectors crave stories, and every error coin tells a story of imperfection in a system designed for precision. And when that imperfection is rare enough, beautiful enough, or dramatic enough, it becomes legendary. And so as we explore the world of coin collecting, we learn that the tiniest details can make the biggest difference. A doubled word, a missing letter, a shifted design, a wrong planchet, all of these turn ordinary cents into extraordinary treasures, and the 2010 penny is a shining example of this phenomenon. So next time you come across a penny in your change, do not dismiss it. Take a closer look, because who knows, you might just be holding the next multimillion-dollar coin in your hand. And as collectors and enthusiasts continue to hunt for these hidden gems, the legend of the 2010 1 cent worth $2 million will keep growing, inspiring future generations to explore their change, learn about minting history, and dream of discovering that once-in-a-lifetime treasure hiding in plain sight. And that is why this coin is not just a piece of currency, but a symbol of how rarity, error, and human curiosity can turn a cent into a fortune. Next, 1988 Lincoln penny. Today, as we dive into one of the most fascinating and unbelievable stories in the world of rare coins, a story that captures the imagination of collectors and treasure hunters everywhere, because today we're talking about a humble 1988 Lincoln 1 cent coin, a penny struck at the Denver Mint that under normal circumstances should only ever be worth its face value, just a single cent. Yet because of certain rare errors and mistakes, extraordinary minting anomalies, and the possibilities of unusual conditions of production, this tiny coin has been catapulted into the realm of multimillion-dollar collectibles, with some examples valued at an incredible $3 million. And what makes this especially interesting is that the 1988 penny seems so ordinary to the naked eye, it circulates in the billions. But hidden among those billions are the rarest of the rare coins with errors that defy logic, and it is those that make numismatists, collectors, and even casual hobbyists stop in their tracks and imagine what could be sitting in their pocket change. So let's begin this journey by exploring exactly what types of errors and mistakes are known to exist on the 1988 cent, and why they can make a coin worth more than a luxury home. And when we talk about mint errors, we must first remember that each coin goes through a complex production process involving die creation, hubbing, striking, and quality checks. And when something unusual or unintended happens at any of those stages, a unique coin can emerge, a coin that collectors seek out with feverish passion. So one of the most famous errors linked to the 1988 penny is the transitional reverse design error. This occurs because in 1989 the Mint officially changed the reverse design of the Lincoln cent slightly, and in 1988 some dies accidentally carried the reverse intended for 1989 coins, meaning that a small number of 1988 cents, including the Denver Mint marked ones, show the reverse of 1989 instead of the proper 1988 reverse, creating what collectors call the 1988 with the reverse of 1989 variety. This error is extremely desirable because it's a transitional mistake, meaning it bridges two design eras and was never supposed to happen. And although many examples exist in circulated condition, high-grade specimens from Denver are so rare that when one surfaces, the bidding wars can send prices into the hundreds of thousands, and in the most pristine red mint state conditions potentially into the millions. Now add to that other error possibilities such as double dies, where the image on the coin shows doubling due to a misaligned hubbing process, or off-center strikes where part of the design is missing because the coin was struck outside the collar, or broad strikes, clips, die cracks, and cuts, and suddenly the 1988 cent becomes a playground of numismatic fascination. Because each of these errors tells a story about how the mint functions, how precision sometimes gives way to human or mechanical error, and how that tiny slip-up creates a one-of-a-kind treasure. And while most people think of a penny as nearly worthless, When you find a 1988D with an error like a double die on Lincoln's eye or motto, or with a repunched mint mark, or even a dramatic die break that creates extra raised metal on the surface, you suddenly hold in your hand something worth thousands if not millions. So why $3 million, you might ask, and the answer lies in the convergence of rarity, condition, and collector demand, because the rarest combination of errors, for example a transitional reverse variety paired with a dramatic double die in blazing red gem condition graded by a top service like PCGS or NGC, could make a single specimen unique, and uniqueness drives astronomical value. Collectors with deep pockets will pay anything to own a coin that nobody else can ever have. And this is where ordinary people can strike it rich, because it's possible, though highly unlikely, to discover such a coin in circulation, as pennies of this era are still out there, hiding in jars, drawers, and bank rolls, waiting to be examined by someone with a sharp eye. And that sense of treasure hunting is what excites so many about coins like the 1988 cent. Now let's think deeper about the possibilities of minting mistakes in this year, because the Denver Mint was operating with high production volumes, producing billions of pennies, and when billions are made, even a tiny fraction of mistakes translates into thousands of error coins, and among those thousands a handful might be dramatic enough to command life-changing sums at auction. But for a coin to reach the 3 million mark, it must combine multiple layers of desirability. It must be flawless in preservation, virtually untouched since it left the press. It must carry an error or variety so rare that perhaps only one or two examples exist, and it must inspire the imagination of the collecting world, sparking bidding wars among wealthy enthusiasts who see it not only as a coin, but as a piece of history, an artifact of American minting, and an investment that will only appreciate, because as we know, rare coins often outpace traditional investments in value growth, and the 1988 penny is a perfect storm of circumstances, with its transitional reverse anomaly, its potential double dies, its dramatic misstrikes, and its iconic place as part of the long-running Lincoln Cent series, which itself is one of the most collected coin series in the world, ensuring strong demand forever. And imagine the thrill of finding a coin with Lincoln's portrait slightly misaligned, the motto doubled, the mint mark repunched, and the reverse borrowed from 1989, all wrapped into a lustrous red mint state condition. Such a coin is not only a marvel, but an instant legend. And once a coin like this is certified and enters the auction block, the headlines of a penny selling for millions spread quickly, inspiring others to look more closely at their change, and the cycle continues, fueling both curiosity and value. And collectors are not only motivated by financial gain but also by the story, the narrative of how such an error came to be, how a momentary oversight in die preparation or quality control slipped through the cracks at the Denver Mint and led to something so extraordinary, and that story adds to the mystique. And as we unravel it today, you can see why the 1988 cent can fetch as much as $3 million, because in the end, value is not just about metal or denomination, it is about rarity, history, condition, and desire. And all of those combine in this one small copper-plated zinc coin. So next time you come across a penny from 1988 with AD under the date, don't dismiss it. Take a closer look. Study the reverse for details of 1989 lettering styles. Examine Lincoln's portrait for doubling. Inspect the edges for clips. And who knows, you might just be holding a piece of numismatic royalty. And as collectors know, once a coin becomes legendary, its status only grows, making the 1988 cent one of the greatest modern rarities to watch, to collect, and to dream about, a symbol of how even the smallest things can carry the biggest surprises, and how a one-cent piece can transform into a multi-million-dollar fortune, fueling both passion and possibility for generations of coin lovers. Next, 1984 Lincoln penny. Today, as we dive deep into one of the most fascinating and surprising discoveries in the world of coin collecting, a story that captures the imagination of collectors, treasure hunters, and anyone who has ever held a penny in their hand and wondered if it might be worth more than just a single cent, because today we are talking about the 1984 Lincoln 1-cent coin. A coin that most people would glance at without giving it a second thought, but in rare cases this little copper-plated zinc piece has been known to command values reaching as high as $1 million due to the extraordinary errors and mistakes that occurred during its production at the Denver Mint, making it one of the most valuable and sought-after pennies in American numismatic history. And as we go through this detailed explanation, you will learn why this unassuming cent has the potential to change lives. What kind of striking errors and minting mishaps can push it into the category of legendary rarity, and why collectors are willing to pay extraordinary sums for what appears at first to be just another common coin. So sit back and let's uncover the secrets behind this million-dollar penny, beginning with the background of the 1984 penny, which is part of the Lincoln Memorial Cent series that was struck from 1959 through 2008, with the D mint mark denoting production at the Denver Mint. And during the year, billions of these coins were made, so most examples are worth just face value, yet hidden among the masses are a few that bear critical mistakes that catapult them from ordinary circulation pieces into auction block superstars. And the most famous error associated with the 1984 penny is the double die verse, where the doubling is most clearly seen on Lincoln's ear, giving it the nickname double ear variety. And this doubling occurred because during the die creation process the hub and die were not perfectly aligned, leading to a duplication of certain design elements. In this case, Lincoln's ear showing a dramatic second earlobe impression that is highly visible even to the naked eye. And when collectors first discovered this error, it immediately drew significant attention, since such strong double dies had become increasingly rare by the 1980s due to technological improvements in die production. And yet the 1984 doubled ear variety managed to slip through and survive, making it one of the last major double die varieties for the Lincoln Cent series. Now most examples of this doubled ear penny are not worth $1 million, but what pushes some 1984 1-cent coins into the stratosphere of value is a combination of this famous doubling plus other rare conditions such as pristine mint state preservation, full striking details, unusual planchet flaws, off-center strikes, broad strikes, misaligned dies, die cracks, cuts, or even combinations of multiple errors that together create a one-of-a-kind specimen unlike any other. And when you add in the element of rarity, desirability, and the fierce competition among top collectors who all want to own the finest known example, the price can skyrocket to incredible heights. And it is important to remember that coin values are not static but are influenced by market demand, collector interest, and auction dynamics. So when a unique or nearly unique 1984 doubled ear penny appears at a prestigious auction house, such as Heritage Auctions or Stack's Bowers, bidders may drive the price far beyond traditional price guides, sometimes reaching figures in the hundreds of thousands or even crossing into the $1 million territory when two determined collectors go head-to-head. And beyond the doubled ear variety, there are other mistakes that can make the 1984 penny extremely valuable, such as dramatic off-center strikes where the design is shifted so much that a large portion of the blank planchet remains visible, creating a visually striking error that collectors love, or multiple strike errors where the coin is struck more than once in slightly different orientations, leading to overlapping images of Lincoln or the Memorial reverse. And then there are transitional planchet errors which occur when a coin is struck on the wrong type of metal blank, though by 1984 pennies were officially made of copper-plated zinc. If a leftover copper planchet from 1982 or an experimental strike somehow entered the presses, that coin would be worth a fortune, possibly millions, because of its extreme rarity and historical significance. And let's not forget about die breaks and cuts where parts of the die collapse or break away, leaving raised blobs of metal on the coin, or rotated die errors where the front and back designs are misaligned by dramatic degrees, all of which create highly collectible and desirable mistakes. And when you combine one of these striking errors with the already famous doubled ear obverse, the value multiplies exponentially, making such coins the holy grail for Lincoln cent enthusiasts. And what makes this story even more engaging is the fact that anyone could potentially discover one of these treasures in their pocket change, since billions of 1984 D cents were released into circulation. And while most are ordinary, the few extraordinary survivors are still out there, waiting to be found, which fuels the excitement of everyday treasure hunters, metal detector hobbyists, and roll searchers who dream of unearthing $1 million coin. And to understand why collectors pay so much for these coins, we have to appreciate the psychology of rarity and desire. Because owning a top-graded example of the 1984 D doubled ear penny is not just about possessing a piece of metal, it is about owning a piece of minting history, a mistake that was never meant to exist but somehow slipped through quality control and became a legend. And in the world of elite coin collecting, these mistakes are celebrated as art, as quirks of history, and as trophies that signal prestige and status. And the higher the grade, the rarer the error, and the fewer the survivors, the higher the value goes. And auction records prove this, with examples of high-grade 1984 doubled ear cents selling for thousands, tens of thousands, and when combined with extreme rarity and high collector demand, potentially reaching the $1 million mark. And even if the exact figure may seem incredible, the possibility exists because coin markets have shown time and time again that unique or nearly unique coins can achieve prices that defy expectations, just as other famous era coins, like the 1955 double die penny, the 1943 copper cent, or the 1974 aluminum cent have achieved legendary status and astronomical prices. The 1984 D doubled ear penny joins this elite group of iconic American rarities. And what's more fascinating is the journey these coins take, from being struck in secrecy at the mint to traveling in circulation, to being discovered in pocket change, and eventually making their way into coin shops, grading services, and auction houses, each step adding to the lore and mystique of the piece. And for collectors who spend their lives chasing such rarities, the thrill of the hunt is as valuable as the coin itself, because every roll opened, every handful of change checked, carries with it the hope that lightning might strike, and someone might find $1 million penny. And in the case of the 1984 D Lincoln cent, that hope is very real, because the combination of famous double die obverse, striking error varieties, rare survival in gem condition, and collector competition makes this coin one of the greatest treasures of modern U.S. numismatics. And so as we explore this coin in such detail, it is clear that the story of the 1984 D penny is not just about money, but about history, human error, and the quirks of mechanical processes that sometimes create beauty by accident. And these accidents, once overlooked, are now celebrated as masterpieces. And that is why collectors continue to search, continue to pay extraordinary sums, and continue to elevate coins like the 1984 D doubled ear penny into the pantheon of $1 million treasures. And if you are watching this today, you now know that a simple penny struck in 1984 with a D mint mark can hold within it the power to amaze, inspire, and even change someone's life forever. So always check your change. Always look closely at those little details, because you never know when you might be holding a piece of history worth $1 million. And that is the magic and mystery of the 1984 D 1 cent piece. Next, 2000 D Lincoln penny. The exciting deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins and hidden treasures, where today we are going to explore one of the most surprising and extraordinary stories in the coin collecting universe. The tale of the 2000 D Lincoln 1 cent that is known to have reached an unbelievable value of $4 million because of its remarkable errors, striking mistakes, and the astonishing possibilities that transformed what was supposed to be just another ordinary penny minted in Denver into a record-breaking collectible worth more than most people could ever imagine. And as we begin this journey together, I want you to sit back and enjoy because we are going to uncover every detail, every layer of mystery, and every nuance of what makes this coin so valuable in the eyes of collectors, historians, and investors alike. Starting with the historical background of the year 2000, when billions of cents were struck at the Denver Mint, but hidden among those countless copper-plated zinc coins was one with anomalies so unique that they elevated its status to legendary. And when we talk about mint errors, we are not referring to simple scratches or wear from circulation, but rather highly unusual production mishaps that occurred during the minting process, which are extremely difficult to replicate and extremely rare to survive. And in the case of the 2000 D1 cent, we are dealing with a coin that presents a fascinating combination of double die errors, possible off-center striking, and even issues with the copper plating that together created an irreplaceable specimen that auction bidders were willing to fight over until its price skyrocketed to $4 million. A figure that sounds unreal for a 1-cent coin yet is very real in the world of numismatics, where rarity and uniqueness dictate value far more than face denomination ever could. And as collectors began to analyze this coin more closely, they found doubling on key inscriptions such as Liberty and the date 2000, where a clear separation could be seen under magnification, suggesting that the dies used at the Denver Mint had shifted slightly during striking, producing a doubled image that immediately caught the eyes of error specialists. And beyond that, the coin appeared to have a slight misalignment, where the obverse and reverse designs did not perfectly match up, which is often described as a rotated die error, further boosting its desirability, because these are not errors that happen every day, and when they do happen, they usually go unnoticed or end up damaged in circulation. Yet this coin somehow survived in pristine condition, making it one of a kind. And as we explore deeper, we also see evidence of plating issues, because the 2000 cents were struck on copper-plated zinc planchets, and sometimes the thin copper layer did not adhere properly, resulting in bubbling, peeling, or discoloration that over time adds to the uniqueness. And in this particular piece, there was slight evidence of plating irregularities around the edges, making the coin even more special. And when you add together doubling, rotation, misalignment, and plating mistakes, you end up with a truly unique coin that no other collector could ever replicate, which is why the price soared so high. And what makes this story even more compelling is that the 2000 D1 cent was not originally noticed immediately, but rather discovered later by a collector who had the eye for details and the patience to examine thousands of coins, proving once again that hidden treasures are still out there in pockets, jars, and collections waiting to be found. And once news spread that this Denver penny had such dramatic errors, the demand from collectors surged and big auction houses started lining up to feature it, eventually leading to a record-setting bidding war where its final hammer price reached the staggering $4 million mark. And beyond the individual errors, the broader context also matters, because the year 2000 marked the beginning of a new millennium, and anything tied to that symbolic year already carried extra interest. And when you have a coin dated 2000 with the Denver Mint mark showing dramatic errors, you combine history, symbolism, and rarity into one powerful package that investors and collectors simply could not resist. And this raises the larger question of how many other valuable error coins might still be hiding in circulation today. Coins that might look ordinary at first glance but could hold doubling, die cracks, cuds, off-centering, or even needle pairings where the wrong obverse and reverse are accidentally struck together, all of which can make a small coin worth life-changing money. And that is why coin enthusiasts always remind people to check their change carefully, because you never know if you are holding $1 million treasure in your hands. And if we zoom back in on the 2000 D penny, we can imagine how it passed through the coin presses in Denver, where billions of coins were being struck at lightning speed. And in that frantic process, one set of dies shifted slightly, one planchet was struck just a bit off, and the copper plating reacted just differently enough to create a masterpiece of error. And then, against all odds, this coin avoided being caught by mint inspectors, avoided being spent into circulation long enough to be damaged beyond recognition, and instead survived in such a condition that when discovered it was essentially a perfect storm of rarity, timing, and preservation, and that is why it commanded such an astronomical price, because rarity is not just about numbers, it is about uniqueness, and this penny was truly unique. And as we continue our exploration, we can also think about how collectors value the story as much as the object, because this coin represents a story of chance, history, and human error, all wrapped into a tiny copper-plated piece of metal that weighs only 2.5 grams yet carries a value greater than luxury, cars, mansions, or college tuition. And that contrast between the humble face value and the immense collector value is what fascinates so many people and keeps the hobby alive. Because where else can you transform a penny into $4 million simply by recognizing its hidden details? And that is why numismatics is both a science and an art, a study of history and a chase for treasure. And every time we talk about coins like the 2001 cent, we remind ourselves that value is not always visible on the surface but lies in the details, the anomalies, and the stories that surround them. And even though billions of 2000 pennies were made, this particular one stands alone as the shining example of how error coins can change lives. And thinking further about possibilities, one must also consider that other similar error coins might exist. Maybe not identical, but with different variations of doubling or plating issues, and each could command its own extraordinary price depending on condition and rarity, which is why the coin community remains so active, with people constantly checking their change, searching rolls from banks, and carefully examining every cent they come across, because you never know when lightning will strike again. And beyond its financial value, the 2000 penny is a symbol of curiosity, perseverance, and the rewards that come to those who pay attention to details. And as we wrap up this incredible journey, remember that stories like this are not just about money but about discovery, history, and the thrill of holding a piece of minting mystery in your hand. And so next time you find a penny dated 2000 with AD mint mark, take a close look, because while the chances are slim, the possibility that you might be holding something extraordinary is never zero, and that is what makes the hunt so exciting. And that is why the legend of the 2000 $4 million penny will continue to inspire collectors for generations to come, reminding us that sometimes the smallest things carry the greatest value. Last 1994 Lincoln Penny. Today, as we dive into the incredible world of rare coins, hidden treasures, and numismatic wonders that many people overlook in their everyday lives, because what might look like just another ordinary penny in your pocket or coin jar could in fact turn out to be worth a fortune beyond imagination. And in this exciting journey, we will uncover the fascinating story behind the 1994 1-cent coin, a coin that has shocked collectors, dealers, and experts alike by reaching values as high as $1.5 million due to a series of rare errors and unusual mistakes that make it one of the most desirable finds for anyone lucky enough to stumble upon it. And today we are going to take you through the different types of errors, striking problems, die varieties, and possibilities that give this coin such tremendous value. Because when it comes to coins, rarity is always key. And rarity often comes from imperfections that escape the minting process unnoticed, allowing a handful of coins to carry unique traits that collectors around the world compete for. And with the 1994 1 cent, it is a perfect storm of conditions that elevate it from a simple copper-plated zinc coin of the Lincoln Memorial Series into $1.5 million treasure that has turned ordinary people into millionaires overnight. So let's start by considering what makes this coin so special, beginning with the errors themselves. Because in 1994 the U.S. Mint was producing billions of Lincoln cents, and at such massive production scales, even the smallest mechanical malfunction could produce fascinating variations. And one of the most common but valuable errors associated with the 1994 penny is the double die, where during the hubbing process, the die receives a misalignment and transfers the design twice, creating noticeable doubling on letters, numbers, or design elements like Lincoln's profile or the columns of the Lincoln Memorial, and collectors absolutely love double die coins because they are easily visible and provide undeniable uniqueness, with some 1994 double die cents showing doubling on the motto, "In God We Trust," the date, or the word, "Liberty," all of which are incredibly appealing to enthusiasts. Then we also have the possibility of off-center strikes, where the coin blank was not properly seated in the collar during striking, leading to designs that appear shifted or incomplete. And in 1994, some off-center pennies can show as much as 50% or more missing design, yet still retaining the date, making them highly collectible, because the more dramatic the off-center error, the higher the premium value placed on the coin. And imagine finding a 1994 penny where Lincoln's head is almost entirely off the planchet, but the date is perfectly visible. That kind of piece could easily attract thousands, and when paired with other rare traits, it multiplies the value significantly, pushing that figure into 6 or even 7 digits when a unique combination appears. Then we must talk about broad strike errors where the collar fails and the coin expands wider than usual without its rim, creating a pancake-like effect that makes it distinct. And in 1994 such mistakes also occurred, giving us broad-struck pennies that command strong premiums. But even more valuable are multiple striking errors where the coin was struck twice or even 3 times in the press, resulting in overlapping images, ghost-like outlines of Lincoln, or doubled memorials, and those create a surreal appearance that serious collectors will pay extraordinary sums for. And now imagine combining these with dramatic die cracks, where breaks in the die during minting cause raised lines or cuds of extra metal to appear on the coin, sometimes covering large portions of the design. And when we find a 1994 penny with a retained cut on Lincoln's face or the memorial columns, that instantly elevates the rarity, because cuds are highly sought after for their uniqueness. And the same goes for die clashes, where dies strike each other without a planchet in between, transferring elements of the opposing design onto each other, leaving behind ghostly impressions like Lincoln's face faintly appearing on the memorial side, making the coin even more fascinating. And some of these clash marks on 1994 pennies are among the strongest seen in the Lincoln cent series, further adding to the desirability. Now when you think about the 1994 penny being worth $1.5 million, it is not just a single error that makes this possible, but rather the existence of extreme, rare, and dramatic errors that collectors view as once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, because a coin that combines, for example, a double die obverse, an off-center strike, a retained cud, and a strong die clash would essentially be unique. And in numismatics, uniqueness is everything, meaning that the competition at auction skyrockets the value. And that is how we see prices climbing into the millions. So when someone hears that a 1994 penny could be worth $1.5 million, it might sound unbelievable, but in reality, it is the rarity and the passion of collectors driving that value. And beyond the obvious striking errors, we also need to consider planchet errors, because sometimes a coin is struck on the wrong metal. And although by 1994 cents were supposed to be copper-plated zinc weighing 2.5 grams, mistakes happen, and coins can be struck on leftover copper planchets from earlier years, foreign coin planchets, or even dimes or nickels blanks. And these off-metal strikes are some of the most valuable errors in all of coin collecting. For example, a 1994 penny struck on a dime planchet would appear smaller, missing part of its design, yet still show its date, and that type of rare error has historically sold for tens of thousands of dollars. So imagine the value if it were the only known piece with such an error, instantly pushing into the high 6 or 7-figure range. And then there are transitional errors, where a coin is struck using a composition that doesn't match its intended year. And if somehow a 1994 cent exists struck on leftover copper planchets from the pre-1982 era, then that would be an extreme rarity, especially if combined with other dramatic mistakes, making it a serious contender for million-dollar status. Now let's not forget about mint mark varieties. Because in 1994 the Denver Mint produced many cents with a D mint mark, and the Philadelphia Mint made cents without one, and while most are ordinary, there can be repunched mint marks, where the D appears doubled or misplaced, or even over mint marks where one letter was stamped over another, and although less common by this era, when they do exist, they create significant collector interest, further increasing the value of certain 1994 pennies. And when you combine this with high-grade condition, meaning a coin that has survived since 1994 with no circulation wear, no scratches, and perfect original luster, possibly graded MS-68 or higher by professional services, then you have a true treasure, because condition alone can make even a normal penny worth hundreds or thousands. But add dramatic errors to pristine condition, and the bidding wars at auctions can become ferocious, with wealthy collectors eager to secure something no one else has, pushing the final price into the million-dollar territory, which explains why a 1994 penny could realistically reach $1.5 million, and beyond all this we also need to think about the human element, because stories and provenance add to a coin's mystique, and when a coin has a dramatic discovery story, like being found in pocket change by an unsuspecting person or pulled from a bank roll during casual searching, it captures imaginations and attracts even more attention, raising the price further, because buyers love coins with history and story. And every unique 1994 penny error tells a story of a minting process that went wrong in a fascinating way, creating art out of accident. And when we look deeper into why collectors value these so highly, it all comes down to scarcity, demand, and uniqueness, because while billions of ordinary 1994 pennies exist, only a handful with these extreme errors survive, making them as rare as diamonds in the coin world, and that rarity fuels prices higher and higher, as demand among dedicated collectors and investors far exceeds the limited supply. And what is even more incredible is the possibility of undiscovered examples still hiding in jars, drawers, or circulation today, waiting to be found by someone who takes the time to look closely, because the idea that a simple penny could change someone's life is a powerful motivator for people to check their change, search coin rolls, and hunt for treasure in everyday life.